How to purl faster the Continental way. Hi everyone, my name is Norman, I run the blog nimbleneedles.com and I want you to become a better knitter, and that's why today's video is all about speed purling. A lot of knitters I know, they hate purling. They say it's slow, it's awkward, and they'd rather walk a mile instead of purling a single stitch. Now, would you believe me if I told you that I don't care if a pattern has a lot of purl stitches or not. In fact, I almost purl as fast as I knit. And that's why I want to show you how I purl the Continental way in this video. But I don't just want to show you the basic technique. I also want to show you specific things you can do to get faster, even if you already are a Continental knitter. And I will also show you a second alternative that might be even faster. Now, I already have a video here on YouTube on Continental speed knitting, so I really urge you to check that out if you haven't seen it already, because a lot of the 10 tips I mentioned in that video also apply to purling faster, and as you might understand, I really don't want to repeat all of them here in this video. So let's head over to my desk and I'll show you how to purl faster. But before, you know the drill, please like this video to support my work, and of course feel free to ask any questions you might have about Continental purling or knitting in general in the comments below. So I'm quickly going to show you how I purl the Continental way for a couple of stitches, and then I'll deconstruct my technique step by step so you can follow along. So this is how I do it. I'm not trying to go as fast as possible here. So in fact, let's do it in slow motion. Okay, this was probably still a bit too fast for you, so let's rewind and go all the way back to the start. The first and probably most important part about purling the Continental way efficiently is finding a good way to tension the yarn. And that's because when you purl, you sort of go against the grain, and if your working yarn is too loose, then the yarn will slip off as you try to pull it through, and the same applies to when it's too taut, then you will have a hard time pulling it through as well. So here's how I tension my yarn. I wrap it around my pinky finger 2 times clockwise, and then I bring it across the back of my hand so the yarn rests here at the top. And then I pick up my knitting needles like this. And you can really toy around with this technique because not all yarns behave in the same way. If it's a super fuzzy yarn with a lot of friction, I often just wrap it around once. And if it's super slick, sometimes I do 3 times. Now, there are some Continental knitters who wrap it around their index finger. But I feel you give up a lot of fine control over the yarn, and it's harder to manipulate the tension evenly because one little movement of your index finger will change the tension drastically. By the way, comment below if that is a topic you are interested in. Once you tensioned your yarn, Continental purling goes like this. You insert from left to right, wrap the yarn around the needle counterclockwise and pull through. Let's do it one more time. Insert, wrap, and pull through. And here's where a lot of knitters get problems because it does not work. The yarn will easily slip off as you try. So you sort of have to flick your right hand back and forth to make it work, and so you catch the yarn at a nice angle. And I can totally understand why some people hate this technique. It's awkward. I learned it that way, but you know, it works, but it's not very smooth. So I'll do it one more time. Insert from left to right, wrap around counterclockwise and pull through. Because I feel the standard technique is very cumbersome and not fast at all, plus it puts a lot of strain on the right wrist, I do it like this instead. So here's how I purl. I insert from right to left, then I wrap the yarn around counterclockwise, and now comes the trick. I use my left middle finger, push the yarn forward, and this creates extra tension and will make it so much easier to pull the yarn through. Let's do it one more time. So insert from left to right, wrap around counterclockwise, and then I push the yarn forward and pull it through. Let's do it one more time in slow motion. And we can speed up things. You can really go super fast with this technique. Now I have seen some people doing the exact same with their index finger. So you insert from right to left, wrap around counterclockwise, and then you bring your index finger forward as you pull through. However, I feel this is a bit awkward. Your index finger really wasn't made to move from left to right. So, and you can't bend your index finger because then you will mess up your tension. So I feel using your middle finger is both more efficient and easier. But maybe your hands work differently and this is easier for you. And speaking of it, try to hold your index finger rather close to the knitting needles. Don't overstretch it like this, because this will put a lot of strain on your wrists and your tendons, and you don't want that. And the second thing you will notice is that I twist my left wrist with every stitch. So I push the needle inside, then as I wrap the yarn around, I bring the needles closer and I twist my wrists, and then I pull out like this. One more time. So I insert and pull through. And this is a very important factor when it comes to speed purling, but also knitting faster in general. Don't just let one hand do all the movement. Meet the stitch in the middle. To visualize, imagine there are two people standing 10 meters apart. If person A walks over to B, it will take 10 seconds. But if they both start walking, they will meet in the middle after 5 seconds. And the same principles apply to the way I do the Continental purl stitch. I use both my hands and to achieve an overall faster knitting speed. So I insert, bring both needles a bit closer together and pick up the yarn as I do so. Then I push the yarn through and flick the stitch out like this. I'm exaggerating. Standard knitting needles, they don't have hooks at the end, so it's very important to pick up the yarn from a right angle. Otherwise, the stitch will just fall off and you'll get super frustrated. So let's purl a couple of more stitches together so you can see the technique in action. As I already mentioned in my previous video on speed knitting the Continental way, I use my fingers as a sort of conveyor belt. So I bunch up a lot of stitches here, and with every stitch I move that stitch here further down the needle and bring more stitches up to the tip of the left needle. See how I'm moving the stitches a bit like a conveyor belt, and that way I really don't have to take a lot of breaks. Also, I knit rather close to the tip, and of course using slick needles like metal needles or these hardwood needles, it also helps a lot to purl faster. Now, there are two reasons why, or there are multiple reasons, but there are two major reasons why Continental purling is so much faster. First of all, it's very easy to bring the yarn back and forth. So you purl one stitch, then you bring the yarn to the back like this, knit one stitch, bring it to the front, purl, bring it to the back, and so on. So it's very easy to do ribbings and that kind of stuff. And the second reason why continental knitting is so fast, when you do a knit stitch, you insert and you pick the yarn through. You don't need to do all the wrapping, you just can pick it through. However, the same does not work for the purl stitch because you have to come from the other side. However, there is a solution to this dilemma, and it's called combination knitting. So for a normal purl stitch, you have to come in from behind and pull the yarn through like this. So picking doesn't work, but you can actually pick the yarn through like this if you want. So you don't need the help of the middle finger, you can just pick it through like this. And if you do that, it's going to be pretty fast and you really don't need the help of the middle finger. So let's do it one more time. So you insert and simply pick the yarn through like this. And with a little practice, you can go super fast. There's one problem with this technique, however. You end up with twisted stitches. See how these knit stitches are mounted the wrong way? And they're twisted even the other way around than a normal knit through the back loop. So on the return round, you have to untwist these stitches by knitting each and every stitch through the back loop. However, it is actually quite easy because the stitches are wide open to the back, so you can really knit fast as well if you don't split the yarn, that is. So on the return round, you would have to knit all stitches through the back loop. And once you untwisted the knit stitches, your stockinette stitch will appear the regular way. See, you really can't spot any difference. I do have to mention that I don't purl that way. I purl like this, the way I showed you before. So kindly look up combination knitting in case you are interested. It obviously has its advantages, but it makes a lot of things a bit more complicated as well. At the end of the day, it's very important to understand that a purl stitch is a mirror inverted knit stitch. And that is precisely why it is a bit harder to purl than to knit. Just like walking backwards is harder as well. And there are ways to make things easier and faster to purl. And I hope I was able to show you exactly that in this video. But you do have to accept that there are certain limits you cannot navigate around. And at the end of this video, I want to say it again, and I want to say it loud. Knitting is not a race. Purling faster alone achieves nothing. Your primary goal should be to knit evenly. Faster will come automatically with practice and not with trying to execute a sloppy technique as fast as you can. So start with the basics and try to get them right 100% and then practice and practice a lot. Also, do accept the limits of your body. I'm 40, you are maybe 20, 60 or even 80 and your hands will work differently. Never work against your body, always work with it. And remember, the joy of knitting comes from within and not from comparing yourself with others in an unhealthy way. Don't ever think you are a bad knitter because you are a bit slower. Knitting is a hobby that can keep you entertained for the rest of your life, and there's always new things to learn and then to improve. And that fact should be celebrated and not used to diminish your worth or your love for this amazing hobby. Anyway, that's how to purl faster the Continental way. Please like this video if you enjoy watching, comment with your feedback and your questions, and of course consider subscribing to my channel in case you don't want to miss any new videos. Happy knitting and enjoy the rest of your day.